you title it The Shaking. What's God telling you about the time, either the week we're in, the month we're in, the year we're in, and what's our posture supposed to be with what you're seeing?
Yeah, the shaking. Well, I mean, you can see it. You could see it in the world, in the news, in the media. I don't watch a lot of news, but I do watch some, and there's certain people I enjoy listening to. You know, you start seeing how God is actually bringing justice. You know, the levels of attacks spiritually, and even what you can see in the natural. By those appointed by God to hold office, whether we're talking political or whatever mountain somebody's assigned to, education. You see that everything being shaken. I remember the Lord several years ago. I was writing my first book. It was like 2012. I heard the Lord say, "Everything that needs to be shaken will be shaken, so that only unshakable things will remain." And I thought about that. I was like, okay, so he's basically going to shake whatever's not him. He's shaking the church, and people would call that the mountain of religion. I don't think the church should be religious, but the idea is he's shaking things that are not built on the right foundation. Now, some leaders are actually being told by God to change posts. There's a shift that's coming for leaders where they'll be reassigned to flow in a different grace. Maybe somebody's pastoring that's supposed to be winning souls on a mass scale, so he shifts them out to move them into more like moving from a pastor role to an evangelist role. There's prophets that are being I believe that prophets are chosen by God, that people don't choose to become a prophet. So a prophet versus a prophetic people, there's people who are prophetic, but they'll never be prophets. But there are prophets that God is bringing to the forefront of the battlefield in the spirit realm, where because of the posture of their heart and because of the grace that God called them to operate in, he's got to move them out of their current capacity to prepare to use them in a higher capacity. So everybody goes through a series of tests, and it's those tests that actually give you the ability to graduate. So you want the test. Like some people they don't like testing. They don't like it. It feels like, what's God doing here? But no, he's not tempting us, but he's testing us, because there's always a test before a graduation. So I would say if somebody feels tested or they're struggling right now, like, where do I fit? But there's this reestablishment of the fivefold ministry. It's so important that we operate as fivefold ministers of the gospel. We're not the same. This is where we saw a schism in the body of Christ a short time ago. You remember where people were blasting a certain individual because they weren't like that. So if I'm a person who maybe sees and I'm looking into the spirit realm and I'm seeing what's going on, or maybe I'm having heaven encounters and somebody else is not, then the tendency would be for that person who's not experiencing that to say that's not real and this person's off.
I see.
And the reality is we're all different. So Steve, you might be, really anointed to bring teaching and to facilitate strategy on the earth as a king, as a priest. Whereas somebody else, they're called to, prophetically just prophesy and flow, and they don't ever make a plan about what to say because they just love God and trust God, and they know their assignment is to speak right out of the spirit, where they're not trying to think or lean on their understanding, but there's things taking shape as those people flow.
And people
in
get
that.
critical with this, what you're describing. We would sometimes say, well, that's right brain activity. You live in the right brain, or I'm more teaching, so I'm a little more left brain. And I mean, I think there's a little bit of validity to that, but really what supersedes the left and right is the gifting of God.
It's the gifting of God, because he wires us different for a purpose. Like, does the hand say to the foot? I mean, the whole idea is you function in your role, and sometimes God will shift or adjust your role. He wanted me to understand how to help pastors. Well, I can't help pastors if I don't know their pain. So he puts me in the pastorate. We just celebrated 12 years, as a church, as a revival center, but as a hub. The Lord said things are going to be different. And he told me to tell everybody at our church that we're taking the month of January off to fast and pray and seek his will. And the Lord showed me some things I can't talk about, but there are some things I can say. And that is, that he showed me things are going to be different. And several people are prophesying like this, like a locomotive train that it will never be stopped, and that there's all this momentum. And the thing that God's about to do is like way beyond what we've ever seen. So we all are expectant, we're hungry, but we're taking time to rest because we feel like we're about to get super busy, and we're excited about that. And so